Hey guys, what's up? This is Cold School, and this is a tutorial of Volume 1, a 3-song EP I've done, and let's just get right into it. I hope you enjoy it. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know below. If you want to see more detailed tutorials on specific things, let me know. This is the first time doing anything like this, so I'm just trying to get a feel for it and see what you guys want. But as always, thank you for watching, and we'll get right into it.
All right, first things first, Shake is the first song off Volume 1, so we can jump right into it. First thing, I use Battery 4 from Native Instruments for a lot of my kits. And right here I got this Gator Creek kit from their Pure Drip expansion, and I changed some things as well. I moved some things around and adjusted it, as well as put some different effects on it. And then whenever I do anything, I always split everything into their own tracks. So like this track is only the kick. This is kick 2, which I'll explain in a second. Right, I have 3 different hi-hats. I have an open, closed, and like a flam thing, or like a kind of like a roll situation. And the snare. So like this is all the drums right here, and I have each thing kind of on its own track. Sometimes I'll put different hi-hats in the same hi-hat track depending on what kind of sound I'm going for. But I do this because it helps isolate things, as well as when you're bouncing stems, it helps you have, like, you know, for instance, kick and kick 2 are a little bit different, right? And I can show you some of that, right? So here's kick 1. And here's kick 2. So kick 2 is just a little bit quieter, and it also behaves a little differently. So when I put them together, so it just allows me to emphasize different beats a little bit stronger or quieter, depending on how I want that to feel. I have my snare down here, and of course all the hi-hats. I always do an EQ, right? So every item I have an EQ, and that EQ a lot of times just looks like this. It depends on what is actually happening, but like when I have a kick, we're having a lot of low end go on, but I'm still trying to get anything below 30 hertz, because that's just gonna, you know, it's sound that you don't hear that's going to take up space. So I always EQ every track, and you can actually see that in like all these tracks. They have an EQ. They have different EQs shaped up. You can see that right here. And it just depends. Like the strings right here, this is where the EQ is, right? Let's hear the strings. See, so all the important information's right here. So I just basically brought up this this low cut to 200 hertz, and I kind of do that for every track. I cut all the low end. Sometimes I'll cut high end, but most of the time that's not as much of an issue. It doesn't take up as much space as the low end will. Right, so let's check out the different sounds. So here's my hi-hats again. All right, and then here's my kick combination of 2 kicks on my snare. All right, and then we can listen to all the drums together. And one thing I like to do, I don't always do this, but I have reverb on every piece of the drum kit here. And I actually, there's this plugin called ROM by Native Instruments, and I think they gave it out for free for like a Christmas thing. But I started using it, and I actually really enjoy it. And I actually have, on some of these, I have like a custom reverb setup, but they actually have a reverb on here. It looks like I have a custom reverb on all these, but they have some reverbs in here that are like already preset for drum kits that just add a little bit of space. And just to like give you an example of this, I'll just do the hi-hats, and I'll show you kind of how it sounds with the reverb and then without. All right, and then I'm going to turn the reverb off. I'm going to turn the reverb back on. It's not a huge difference, and then there is a reverb, kind of like a reverb over the whole track that you can hear as well. It doesn't make a huge difference, but like it does add just a little bit of space. It does give just a little bit extra feeling so that things don't feel quite as dry. And then I actually have two basses, so I'll show you the first bass. All right, so that's the first bass, and then this is the second bass. So basically the only difference is one has a decay on it that it dies faster, so it's more of like a stab, whereas the other one still has like a punchy, kind of plucky feel, but it sustains. And for the bass, I'm actually using a reactor instrument called Track 1, or TRK-01, Track 01. And they have Track 1 bass and kick, and I think these are actually designed to be like for techno, because like when you go to the Track 1 and they have combinations of bass and kick, it's very like techno. But I found that it's kind of a fun, quick, easy way to get some cool basses. So it looks like I made my own thing on this. Sometimes I go through their presets and tweak those. Sometimes I just do my own thing. But it's pretty cool because you have an oscillator. You get to pick between these different presets in terms of like what kind of oscillator they are. You get to do things like tune your sub, right? So I have my sub tuned an octave down. So I'm playing at 1 octave and the sub's down an octave. The subtone affects how much that sub comes through. You can change like your sub route, and then you have your envelopes where you can change things. So this one's the sub that sustains. It still has a small punch, but it sustains pretty strongly, right? The bass 2, this one does not have any sustain at all. It's got a pretty decent decay. It's just kind of a fun thing to design a bass in. I use other instruments as well. When I'm in Reactor, I'll use things like Razor. I'll also use like Massive or Massive X for a lot of basses or subs as well. But for these tracks, I just used the Track 01 bass. And then I have a key lead here, and I have a key chord. So this is what they sound like together. So here's what the chords sound like on their own. It's kind of like old school hip hoppy, kind of Dr. Dre sounding. And then this is the lead line by itself. And it basically just adds a little bit to these chords because they feel a little bit dry on their own. So it just adds a little bit extra. And on everything I have, it looks like I have, of course I EQ it. It looks like I actually turned off a delay on the chords, probably because it was just too busy. But I put an exciter and a reverb on here, and it looks like I put a compressor, and it looks like the side chain is going into the kicks. So the kicks are running to a bus, and then I'm side chaining here so that when the kicks play, it just adds a little bit of movement and frees up some space sonically. And then on the lead, it looks like I have the exciter. It looks like I have the delay on. And you can hear it. It just kind of helps with the stereo imaging a little bit. So Rise and Rise Reverse are next. This is basically something I have pretty much in most of my tracks. Like, it's an easy way to add emphasis, to kind of like tell the listener where we're going. But here's kind of what it sounds like. So your main rise is literally just to like add a little bit of noise that basically prepares the listener for a transition, or prepares the listener for like, sometimes it just kind of helps prolong something. So like you can put a rise in the middle of like a verse, if it's timed right, where it helps everything feel like it's resetting and kind of keeping it fresh. So it's not just the same chords over and over again, but this is what the basic rise sounds like. Cool. And then this is what the reverse sounds like. So that reverse, I just bounced the rise out and reversed it. And the reason I do that is that it helps fill in space, so it doesn't feel like you just rise and then everything's gone. It gives you like kind of an echo of the rise. And then it just helps when you're transitioning, right? And I'll give you an example of that here. It just helps the transition go a little bit smoother. So let's go over the pad. All right, so this pad is a contact instrument. Again, this is Native Instruments. I use a lot of Native Instruments stuff. I started buying their stuff like 10 years ago, and I've just continued to buy their stuff. They make really good stuff that's like really easy to use. So they had this thing called Analog Dreams. It's super cool. It looks like I used this Blurry Skies. And really the pad is designed to go along with these strings. So when we put them together, it sounds like this. So these strings, I'll show you what these are. These are a Native Instrument contact string ensemble, and these are the Symphony Essentials. They actually have a more expanded version of this plugin, but I didn't want to pay for it. I did an upgrade from an older version of Complete, and it was a 400 versus 6. I think it was either $400 to upgrade or like 800 or 600 or something. And I just wanted to do the 400. I got a bunch of extra cool stuff, and I was happy with these. I've used these strings in other songs as well. They sound fantastic. But that's basically what this song is. I know I have a lead line in here. Give me 1 second to find it. Here we go. I called it Harm Parm, and I don't know why. I name things randomly, and this is hilarious to me. It's really stupid, but I think it's funny. And this is what it sounds like. So I was trying to find something that sounded kind of like an old school, more like a sine wavy kind of lead line, but I wanted more character to it, and I actually am using Razor. So this is another Reactor instrument from Aerosmith. Super, super cool. I really enjoy. I've done some weird things with this on other projects, and I really enjoy this as an instrument. So I called it Harm Parm because Harmonic Particles was the preset. But I actually went in and changed it, and you can see it through this little asterisk here. I don't know exactly what I changed, but I did change stuff and made it sound the way it does. I also added ROM again. I really love this reverb. Here's what it sounds like without ROM. Here's what it sounds like with ROM. It just adds space, kind of makes it sound like it's coming from an alien spaceship, things like that. I dig stuff like that. So that's kind of what everything is. So one thing I did do that I enjoy is I switch up the verses. I try to like find some empty space to emphasize everything else going on. So I'll basically start with something like this. And then I'll try to go in and give some empty space like here. And I think literally the only thing I changed was the hi-hats. Everything else stayed there, and just I also pulled the snare out. So just pulling the hi-hats and snare out just gave it kind of like a down low feel. I brought some emphasis to it, and then it comes back in full. And then we go into our chorus. And yeah, that's pretty much the track. This track is a little bit slower. As with the other tracks in Volume 1, they tend to be a little bit slower than I think I'd like. But just when I was writing in the moment, it felt good. So that's why it's the tempo that it is. All right, so this is Rattle. It's song number 2. And I've kind of gone over the drum kit already and how I did everything there. I only have one bass in this track, so like in the last track I had 2. In this track I only have one bass. It does kind of limit the dynamics of the bass a little bit, but that's just the way I did it here. It looks like I used my harm palm from the other one as well, and we can give that a listen here real quick. So just kind of a simple lead line there for the chorus. I've got my rise and rise reverse like always. Here I have a rise 2 and a rise 3. These aren't designed to be like the other rise, where these are kind of showing like, hey, we're going from this intro space into a verse space. We're transitioning to the second part of the verse. We're transitioning to the hook or chorus, right? So these are more for transition. And then these right here are actually more for ambience, and I'll mute these so you can get hear what they sound like. So these are rise. And I didn't bring this up in the last one. There's a contact instrument I use called Rise and Hit. It's really excellent. They have all kinds of samples of white noise, cymbals, instruments, synthesizers, people's voices, and really cool samples. Great to make different kinds of like rise and hits and everything else. I don't know why I didn't go over that. I just forgot to. But yeah, these just have a ton of stuff on them. They've got tons of, they're pitch shifted. And you can hear that one's a higher pitch than the other. They both are EQ'd, obviously cutting out the low end. I have reverb on them. They're also side chained to the kick. So when the kick is on, it's not big, but it does help just create a little bit of movement in the track overall. And then here's some keys that I have. So it's just like a delayed lead line. Pretty simple track. I used a lot of the same stuff as the other one. The things that aren't the same is this guitar stuff right here. So this right here is a MIDI instrument guitar that comes in Logic. It's just one that I found. I tweaked it a little bit and I was happy with it. And that one has, it's got its pedal board and amp, and then I use Guitar Rig again, another Native Instruments plugin. I jumped in and found this preset here called Clean Cave. It's just kind of like an ambient guitar preset that I liked. And so it just gives some reverb and a little bit of delay, but it's not super prevalent, so it just sits in the mix well. Here's what it sounds like without it. So it just basically gives it space, makes it feel full. Super cool setup. Guitar Rig has some really cool presets. And then the other guitar is the chorus guitar, and that is this right here. I'll play it for you so you can hear it. So basically, what happened with this, right? When I was doing this one, I think I used a MIDI guitar instrument that like actually played the chords. And then what happened was for some reason the timing got messed up. So I basically rewrote the part out, bounced it to audio, and then again the timing got messed up. I think I had to adjust the sample rate of the track for my stems or for my master. When that happened, it affected the timing of these audio parts right here. So what I did is I just dropped the stem in, and it adjusted to the right bit rate and sample rate, and had the timing right. So I just left it in, and my stem had all the effects on it, right? So I had tons of reverb and stuff like that going on, and I'll just play it again so you can hear it. So I had tons of distortion and reverb. I think I even had a little bit of delay, like super light in the background. But I didn't even have to EQ this because I had already EQ'd it, and all the frequencies are where I wanted it. So the cool thing is, if you do stems, you can write your whole track, bounce your stems, and if you ever have a problem where something gets messed up or something is out of time or you have to adjust something, you can always just drag and drop your stems back in, and it just fixes problems. I do have this bust right here in a summing stack, and I have Neutron 3 on it. So this is an isotope plugin. Neutron 3 is a really, really cool EQ. It's also got some other stuff for mixing as well. It's one of those things that like I don't use it perfectly, I'm sure. But as an EQ, I really, really love it. It obviously has sculptor, equalizer, compressor, exciter. That's everything on here. This is basically designed to EQ a distorted electric guitar. So it just makes it sound really good. So like this is with it. This is without it. So you can tell there's a huge difference, right? The compressor levels everything out. It makes it sound consistent. The exciter and sculptor help it bring out the high end. Yeah, so it's like it just kind of fills in those gaps. Isotope makes some really cool stuff that makes some very... EQing isn't the hardest thing, but it makes it super easy. And that actually, I use an isotope plugin for all my masters as well. I'll just kind of play this here. I think I have the same pad. It may be a different pad. So this is Blurry Skies again, but I've changed it. It's faster attacking. I've also got more notes being played by the pad. It just sounds really full. And I'll just show you guys, like, here's kind of what it sounds like. It's going to have all this stuff right here. So it's keys, guitar, ambient, rise, bass 1. We only use one bass here. And then obviously our drum set. So it's kind of cool. You can tell how this rise really doesn't signify a change. It just adds to the ambience, right? It adds a little bit of tension. And this right here is the chorus. A cool thing I like is how I use silence. I basically use these rise and then the silence after to create a little bit of tension. So you anticipate the swell and then you almost hold your breath in the silence, which is something I like. So that's Rattle, and now we're going to get on to Roll. All right, so here we are in Roll. The drum set is the same as the others, except I only have one kick. So I didn't use a different kick, and the reason why is this track's a little smoother and a little more mellow. I kind of wanted to have a main bass line. Looking back, I probably could have brought some extra emphasis to the track if I would have used another kick. Same thing with the bass. The bass kind of feels the same the whole way throughout. I liked it when I wrote it, but I feel like it would have been cooler to have a little bit of a variation. But anyway, this is what the drum kit sounds like for this track. Super simple. Like I said, everything is EQ'd, cutting out that bottom part of those sub frequencies below 30 hertz. Everything has some ROM on it to add a little bit of space. And then I have, like I said, I have one bass, and this is what it sounds like. So it's a super simple bass. It's really full, and it takes up a lot of space, but it feels good and sounds good. So I like it. We have a lead line here in this one. So this keys is the same as the one before. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is the same instrument brought over. When I was doing the Volume 1 project, I wanted it to kind of sound like it went together. In the end, it did not really sound similar, any tracks. They all sounded kind of unique. But I was using like the same drum set. I was using a lot of the same bass. Like this bass, even though it sounds different, it's still the same track 1 bass. It's just altered a little bit. I have modulation on the filter. Keys are the same thing. So in the keys chords here, this one might be different. Yeah, so this is actually hybrid keys, another Native Instruments VST that you can use through Contact. It's kind of like Analog Dreams or like one of those others. Like it's not as deep and complex as some of the other instruments, but it's really cool. They have different samples that you can put together, and I selected this one called Cinema, and I probably adjusted some stuff a little bit, but it had some... It basically has these two samples, you blend between them, and then you adjust some things down here, lid, reverb, echoes, things like that. And of course, being me, I put an exciter and ROM, and I side-chained it and everything so that it sets in the mix a little bit better. So this is what it sounds like with the drums and just the keys. So, as you notice, I don't think I sidechained this lead. It looks like I did, but it's super light, so it doesn't really sound like the lead's getting pulled out as much as the chords are, because I feel like the chords being like a background thing, having that movement's good, but like you don't want your lead line fading in and out real harsh with every drum kick. I got my rise and rise reverse. This one's only transition, so there's no like extra things I'm doing with it here. It's literally just to be like, we're going from the intro into the verse right here, you know, changing it up on this part of the verse, stuff like that. The pad here, let's take a listen to the pad. So this pad is a different pad. So this pad's different. So this is not the same pad as before. I think it's still an Analog Dreams. It's just a different one that I tweaked, that I like the way it sounded for this song. On this song, we have some acoustic guitar. I'm pretty sure, this is just a Logic sampler acoustic guitar MIDI instrument. So it's literally just the sampler from Logic with an EQ cutting out the low end. I've got a delay and reverb, and then some side chain, so when the kick comes in. So it just moves a little bit with the kick. And then let's see what this guy is right here. Yeah. So this is like a little accent that I came up with. This is a Logic piano. Obviously, it has its own EQ and compressor here. I just added ROM for extra space. So here's what it sounds like without ROM. So kind of dry, which is all good if you want that, but I added ROM. Tons of space, dude. So really cool. And then, so here's what's really fun about this track, and I'll definitely play everything together for the for the verse, probably here with the guitar, and then the chorus. So this right here is crowd noise. And I'll just like move this so you can just hear the crowd noise. But basically I wanted to add like a specific ambience to this track. And I did it by using like crowd noise samples that are provided. And so basically, and I'll get into like all this stuff down here. But I used Alchemy, which is a Logic VST. It's actually pretty sweet. I think it was originally created by Camel Audio, and then it was bought out by Logic, but it's really cool. They have tons of samples and stuff that you can use. They actually have like tons of like human noises, synthesizers, like acoustic instruments, all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool. It's pretty comparable to Native Instruments. They have something called Absinthe, and they're a little bit different. So I'll use Absinthe for like more experimental weird sounds, and then if I'm looking to get like just a really good sample, like that I want the sample to be heard primarily, I'll actually use Alchemy. So when it comes to like vocal samples or anything, I'll usually use this or Absinthe, depending on how weird I want the sound to be. Absinthe is really cool at making things super weird sounding, or just super unique sounding. So it just depends on how I want it to sound. But this is the crowd noise. So that is, I think it's like an Icelandic choir. They did a session where they just took samples of an Icelandic choir. So I have a couple things that are really cool, right? So at the beginning of the track, I have this count in, and this is what it sounds like. All right, and then there's the crowd noise, the roll count in, and then this right here, I put as a loop bus. So what this is it's basically some noise that I looped, and I'll actually show you what it sounds like. Now it does sound a little bit robotic, which is why I have this crowd noise up here that I showed you first. I have that crowd noise because it helps break the robotic like feeling of the loop. The loop is cool because it constantly has that noise there and it kind of constantly fills the space in. But I use this other crowd noise just to kind of break the like monotony of like that loop, because there's like some specific noises you hear, multiple times. Another sound I have is this woohoo. Let me show you that. Now there is some background noise in there, but what's cool is like once I get all the noise going, you really can't tell. So let me get all that. So it sounds a little chaotic here, but once I put it together, it will make sense. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you. And I'm actually just going to play from the beginning, going into the count in and then into this first verse. So you can get a feel for how it sounds. And then I'll like show you the guitar and the chorus. So pretty cool. I'll show you what it sounds like when the guitar comes in. And then chorus. So So a super chill song, and then I basically come in here in the second verse and I pull stuff out, right? So here's what the second verse sounds like opening back up. Basically, I just pulled the pad out, and it just brought things down a little bit, and then I actually pulled the bass out right here. And pulling the bass out was kind of cool because it just kind of stopped everything, made you feel like you're just kind of suspended waiting for the next thing to happen. And that's kind of what I do right here as well, going into this next part with this transition right here. So again, kind of like in Rattle, using silence, I just kind of timed things up to like have this open space here, and it just really fits really well, pulls you into the next hook, and really makes you anticipate that chorus or hook. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the track. I pull the bass out after the second chorus, just as an outro, just so to like kind of calm things down. And again, using silence, I kind of pull the bottom part of this off. So yeah, that's Roll. And like I said, using silence, letting things echo out, letting things fade slowly off the reverb, I just feel like brings a good end to the song.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope it was helpful. Like I said in the beginning, leave a comment if you like this, if you want to see more like it, if you want to see something more in-depth when it comes to mixing, mastering, EQing, any kind of sound design, stuff like that, let me know. All my beats are for sale on my BeatStars. All the links can be found in the description of the video, as well as on my YouTube banner. I also have like a website that's kind of like a link tree. You can find all my stuff there. But I also have music on Spotify and SoundCloud. If you want to follow me on there and check it out, as I release new things, it'll be there. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you want to see more things like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.